The fluorescent lights of the clinic buzzed a flat, annoying sound over my head. My mother's voice cut through it, sharp and cold. "We'll need some blood work to check Evan's levels," the doctor had just said, looking at my younger brother, who was swinging his legs on the exam chair. Before the doctor's words could even settle, my mother laughed. It wasn't a happy sound. It was like the scrape of a knife on a plate. She leaned forward, her smile a thin, cruel line. "Can her blood work for my son?" she asked, flicking her eyes toward me in my corner chair. "She's just storage anyway." The words hung in the sterile air, heavy and suffocating. The nurse, who had been smiling a moment before, froze with a needle in her hand. The doctor's face went stiff. My mother didn't seem to care. She smirked at me, her eyes empty of anything but disdain. "Why waste time drawing his blood if you can just use hers? She doesn't have much of a purpose, but maybe she can finally give something back." Evan, my perfect little brother, giggled from his throne on the exam chair. He looked at me with the same coldness he had learned from our parents. "Yeah, Mom's right. She's like a spare tank, right? Just take hers." My chest felt like it was being squeezed by an invisible hand. A scream built in my throat, a desperate cry that I was a person, that I was his sister, that I wasn't just a container for spare parts. But I swallowed it down, biting the inside of my cheek so hard I tasted the warm, metallic Thames of blood. The doctor cleared his throat, a deep, uncomfortable sound. "That's not how it works, ma'am. We need his sample for accuracy." But my mother just threw her head back and laughed again. Louder this time, a performance for the whole clinic to hear. "Of course, it doesn't work like that, but wouldn't it be nice to finally get something useful out of her?" My dad wasn't there, but I could imagine him perfectly. He would have laughed too, that deep, booming laugh he saved for when I was the punchline. This was their favorite game, finding new ways to tell me I was nothing. The nurse quickly and quietly drew Evan's blood. My mother kissed the top of his head, whispering praise as if he'd just won a marathon instead of sitting still for 30 seconds. Then, as a final twist of the knife, she turned to me, her voice dripping with fake sweetness. "See how brave he is. You'd probably faint. That's why you're better at storage." A hot fire burned behind my eyes, but I refused to let tears fall. I squeezed my hands into fists, my nails digging half-moon shapes into my palms. I didn't move. I didn't make a sound. I wanted to remember every single word, to let their poison sear itself into my memory. The humiliation didn't stop when we left the clinic. On the drive home, my mother was on the phone with Dad, her voice loud and proud. "You should have heard me. I told the doctor, she's just storage." Everyone laughed. In the back seat, Evan cackled, adding his own commentary. "Yeah, she's like a fridge, Dad, just keeping parts until I need them." The car was filled with their laughter. It bounced off the windows, pressing in on me from all sides, suffocating me in my own silence. When we walked through the front door, Dad was waiting with a grin. "How was it?" he asked, kissing Mom on the cheek. She tossed her purse onto the kitchen counter. "Evan was perfect, of course." Then she looked at me. "And Rachel, well, I told the doctor what she really is. Just storage." Finally said it out loud. Dad's laugh boomed through the house. "Good. Someone had to say it. She should be grateful she even has a roof over her head. We should start charging her rent for storing her here." Evan picked up the word like a new toy, running up the stairs chanting, "Storage, storage, storage." I stood frozen in the doorway, my legs shaking, the weight of their words trying to crush me into the floor. But somewhere deep inside, beneath all the pain and humiliation, something hard and cold began to form. They thought I was storage. Fine. Then I would remember everything. I would listen to every cruel joke. I would take in every laugh, every sneer, every ounce of their pride. And one day, I would use it all against them. Because storage doesn't just hold things. Storage keeps everything safe until the right time. And I made a silent promise to myself that the right time was coming. The nickname wasn't a one-time thing. It stuck like tar. From that day forward, my parents and Evan didn't just treat me like I was worthless. They used the word storage as a weapon. It was their private joke, their family mantra, their daily reminder that I was not a daughter or a sister. I was an object. I would come into the kitchen for breakfast and find a post-it note on the fridge in my mom's sharp, pointed handwriting. "Storage unit, don't eat the good food." Dad would get home from work and toss his dirt-covered boots in my direction. "Here, storage, put those away. At least you're useful for something." Evan found new, creative ways to be cruel. He'd call his friends on speakerphone so I could hear them all laughing. "Come over and see my family's storage unit. She even cooks sometimes if you're lucky." His friends would howl with laughter on the other end of the line. If I ever tried to defend myself, to say anything at all, he would sneer, "Careful, don't wake the storage unit, it gets loud." Every word, every laugh, every mocking look was like being burned with a hot piece of metal. But instead of breaking down, I started listening. I watched them. I collected their words, their actions, their secrets. One night at the dinner table, my mom was bragging about Evan's grades. "My son is going to be a doctor, or maybe a lawyer. Maybe both," she said, her voice full of pride. She tilted her head towards me. "Unlike her, she's lucky if she remembers to breathe." Dad let out a short, barking laugh and raised his glass of wine. "Storage doesn't need brains, just empty space." Evan grinned, cutting into his steak with too much force. "Don't worry, Mom. If I ever need a transplant, I know where to get one." Their laughter echoed around the dining room. But I just kept my head down, chewing my food slowly, forcing my breathing to stay even. My silence wasn't weakness anymore. It was my shield. Silence was survival. The more they talked, the more they revealed. They showed me their weaknesses, the things they cared about most: money, their perfect image, Evan's glorious future, their spotless reputation in our small town. Every time they bragged, I filed it away in my mind. A piece of precious evidence. One evening, I was walking past the living room and heard my mom on the phone with her sister, my aunt. Her voice was clear through the slightly open door. "Rachel. Oh, she's nothing. We keep her around, but honestly, she's just taking up space. Evan is our legacy. He's everything. She's storage." Like I said, everyone knows it now. She laughed, and I heard my aunt's faint laughter join hers. I pressed my back against the cool wall in the hallway, my nails digging into the wallpaper. My heart pounding with a cold, controlled fury. They weren't just hurting me inside our home anymore. They were broadcasting it, making my label permanent in the minds of others. A few days later, my mom dragged me to the grocery store. She ran into an old neighbor and immediately started gushing about Evan, introducing him like a visiting prince. Then, with that familiar, ugly smirk, she turned to me. "And this is Rachel," she said to the woman. "Our storage. Isn't that funny?" The neighbor gave a nervous little laugh, mumbling something polite before quickly walking away. But the look of victory on my mom's face told me she thought she'd won. By then, their words barely stung. My skin had grown numb to their casual cruelty, but my mind was sharper than it had ever been. That night, lying in my bed, I watched the street lamp cast shadows on my ceiling and whispered to the darkness. Storage remembers. They didn't understand. I wasn't just holding their insults. I was holding their secrets, their lies, their weaknesses, and I was done being their dumping ground. A plan started to grow in my mind, a careful, quiet plan that would hit them exactly where it would hurt the most. If I was storage, then I would store their secrets, and when the time was right, I would unload everything. The change in me was subtle. When Dad left his credit card statements on the kitchen counter, I memorized the overdue balances. When Mom lied to her friends about Evan winning awards he never even competed for, I took note of every single lie. When Evan posted online, bragging to his friends about cheating on exams or bullying other kids at school, I took a screenshot. I saved everything. I stored it all. The more I collected, the stronger I felt. Every cruel word they threw at me was just another crack in the foundation of the perfect family image they were so desperate to maintain. One evening, Evan barged into my room without knocking, shoving his phone in my face. "Storage. My friends loved that video of you crying at the doctor's office. Want to make another one? Maybe this time we can film you begging for table scraps." He laughed, expecting me to cry or yell, but I just looked at him with empty eyes, saying nothing. My lack of a reaction made him nervous. He shifted his weight, the smirk fading from his face, and left my room. My mom noticed the change. "What's with you?" she asked one morning, her eyes narrowed with suspicion. "Not crying anymore? Not fighting back? Did you finally accept what you are?" I let a small smile touch my lips, the first real one in weeks. "I'm just listening," I said softly. Her own smile faltered by the time Evan's next follow-up appointment came. I was ready. I wasn't going to scream. I wasn't going to cry. I was going to set the stage. The clinic wasn't a place of humiliation anymore. It was going to be the place where their own words, their own poison, would become their downfall. The air in the clinic felt charged with electricity. My mom walked in with her head held high, Evan bouncing next to her. Dad came too, a proud grin on his face. I followed them, my bag clutched in my hand, my heart beating a steady, determined rhythm. We sat in the same small exam room. Evan complained about the needle, and Mom soothed him. "Don't worry, sweetheart. If he faints, maybe Rachel can give him some of her blood. After all, she's just storage. Dad chuckled. Hell, why not drain her completely? Then at least she'd finally serve a purpose. Their laughter bounced off the sterile walls. But this time, they weren't the only ones listening. I had been prepared. My phone was in my bag, propped up just right, the recording app already running. Every word, every ugly laugh, every single cruel joke was being captured. The doctor came in, his eyes on the chart. He frowned, then looked up at my parents. Mr. and Mrs. Callahan, I need to discuss Evan's results with you. In private. Mom waved her hand dismissively. Say whatever you need to. Rachel's just here for the ride. The doctor hesitated, then let out a sigh. Evan's results show some serious issues. We'll need consistent follow-ups, and potentially long-term treatment. And I must stress, falsifying records or making jokes about transferring blood or organs is a serious matter. This clinic has a zero-tolerance policy for any kind of exploitation. His voice was sharp, professional. My mom's smile faded. Dad coughed uncomfortably, but before either of them could respond, I reached into my bag, took out my phone, and placed it on the counter. The screen was lit up. I pressed play. Can her blood work for my son? She's just storage anyway. My mother's voice filled the room. Why not drain her completely? At least she'd finally serve a purpose. My father's booming laugh followed. She's lucky she even has a roof. Their own voices, loud and clear, echoed back at them. The doctor stood frozen. The nurse's eyes went wide. Even Evan's arrogant expression shattered. The room was completely silent except for the recording of their own laughter. My mom lunged for the phone, but I snatched it back. My voice was as cold as ice. Go ahead. Try to take it. I've already sent copies. Dad's face turned a deep, blotchy red. You wouldn't dare. I already did. I cut him off. The clinic's administration, the school board, all your precious neighbors. They have it now. Every single word. The doctor's face had turned to stone. This is abuse. We are required to report this immediately. My mom started to stammer. It was just a joke, but the nurse shot her a look that could kill. You don't joke about selling your daughter's blood. I finally stood up straight, meeting their horrified eyes for the first time. Storage doesn't just hold things, I said, my voice steady and strong. Storage keeps records, and I've kept everything. As I walked out of that clinic alone, I could hear their panicked, desperate voices behind me, no longer laughing. The world outside felt different. The same neighbors who used to offer polite, awkward smiles now whispered behind their hands when my parents walked by. The recordings spread like wildfire. Their perfect family image didn't just crack, it exploded. By that evening, our town's social media pages were flooded. The story was everywhere, shared by my classmates, my dad's coworkers, my mom's friends. The headlines were brutal. Local parents call daughter storage, suggest using her blood for son. Their empire of pride, built on my pain, collapsed overnight. At school, the word storage was thrown back at Evan until he became the joke. Dad's boss called him in for a meeting, and his coworkers stopped talking to him. My mom's friends suddenly stopped answering her calls. Everywhere they went, they were met with stares, whispers, and disgust. And me. For the first time in my life, I walked with my head held high. I wasn't their storage unit anymore. I was the one who had taken the only things they ever truly loved, their reputation, their pride, and their power over me. They had made me their punchline, but in the end, they became the joke everyone laughed at.